Council public hearing, October 6, 2017. The agenda item is to consider zoning text amendment to add special planning area district number 4, SPA-4, and to consider a zone change for 12.47 acres located Waycross Road and Hamilton Avenue for planned business PB to SPA-4. This is an issue that has been discussed with Planning Commission and has their recommended approval. Mr. Hodges, would you, either way, wherever you...
I'll actually go to the podium, try to play Chris role as best I can. But this is an item that staff is actually asking that we postpone action on. We started this back in December because we had a prospect for development on the 12-plus acres at Hamilton and Waycross. And in order to put that project in a way that we thought would be best, we needed to change it from basically a plan, from a business district to a special planning district. That way we can kind of accommodate the setting around us. We actually have 3 planning districts in the city now, and this would be the 4th planning district. But since the time, and at the time that we were looking at the rezoning of this property, the project appeared to be on a fast track. So we needed to be proceeding without delay if this prospect was going to be on this property, understanding at that time that they were looking at more than one property. So this wasn't the only property that they were looking at. They have not proceeded as quickly as we want. So for that reason, and partly because of the fact that we already advertised the public hearing, Chris, I'm doing a pretty good job, but not good enough. So come right on up here. But Chris will give you some more details and maybe answer your questions a little more thoroughly than I would. But basically, because we had started the process, we did the advertisement, and we, in essence, made a legal announcement that we would be conducting this hearing, we decided to go ahead with the hearing. In addition to the fact that we would like to hear if there are any objections. We weren't anticipating any objections, but it would be good to know because there are businesses and there are residentials around us, and it would give us a better perspective on it. So for that reason, we continued with the public hearing, although, again, our staff recommendation is that we delay any action on that. So with that in mind, I'll turn it over to Chris, and he'll take it from there.
Let's let Chris explain, talk first about the project, and but then we will need, when we go into the council meeting, we will need a motion to amend the agenda because of the postponement of the item. I think it's not on.
No, it was on the agenda.
Okay, that's just one other item. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Anderson, if you would.
Thank you, Mayor. Chris Anderson, Community Development Director for the City of Forest Park. I always announce that at a public hearing. What we're talking about is the former Kmart property at Hamilton and Waycross, approximately 12.5 acres. It consists of 3 parcels. It was the Kmart store itself and the adjoining shopping center that the city purchased and demolished. We've held that land since around 2005 and have come close to 1 or 2 development projects, but nothing has really clicked yet. We had a prospect, which was a distribution company that wanted to move from the city of Cincinnati. And they initially looked at the National Bedding building on Carillon Boulevard. Because of the nature of the business, it wasn't a perfect fit for that building. In addition, that building was a little bit bigger than they needed. And we just weren't sure that we could even fully support it at a staff level to say amend the zoning in the SPA 3 district, and mainly because of the amount of truck traffic. While discussing this project with the company, and it was a significant economic development project in terms of payroll, we mentioned that we had this land at Hamilton and Waycross, and the company was actually very interested. They had looked at doing new construction on one or two sites in other communities. At that time, which was late November, early December, they were on a very, very tight time frame. They basically wanted to have a decision made before the end of the year and to begin construction by the beginning of the second quarter, which would be March 31st. And so in order to be responsive to that, to move at the speed of business, as they say, I requested that the city council, and you all did it through a resolution, to initiate the rezoning of the property, and because it would not fit in the planned business district. The only districts that it would fit in are the manufacturing and industrial park districts, but those are all both single districts with multiple properties. The one is on the east side along Northland Boulevard, that's the manufacturing district, and then the IP district is at the Crossways Industrial Park. In addition to that, both of those districts allowed numerous other uses that we wouldn't necessarily want to see on the corner of Hamilton and Waycross, which is not as important for this deal, but rather for something that may come down the road should the company decide to move or close or what have you, sell. Then that range of businesses would be open, at least in theory, for somebody else to come in. The final thing that kind of played into this calculus was that we knew that the Hamilton Waycross property, we had some goals for it ourselves as a city, the city council, and the planning commission, which is, number one, that it serve as a gateway property, and meaning that it should have a very high-end appearance, significant landscaping, good lighting, nice signage, all that would complement what we've done along Waycross Road with the streetscape, and really just say, you are entering Forest Park, and this is, you're going to look at a quality building that is an asset rather than a detriment to the corner. And so for that, I set on a recommendation, which was to develop a new SPA, and that's Special Planning Area district. We have 3 of them right now. The first was established at Kemper Meadow, and again, that was city-owned property too. The second was established at the Winton Kemper Plaza property, which goes all the way from Aldi all the way down to the funeral home. And then the third was established at Carillon Park when Union Central developed that. This would be SPA 4. And I listed some of the things that we would want to have in there in terms of design standards and development standards. Again, the landscaping, the signage, the lighting, having the building have an office appearance from the front, having the building oriented towards Waycross Road rather than Hamilton. In addition, directing truck traffic and truck parking so that it had the least amount of visual impact, while at the same time having the least amount of noise and motion impact on the residential property to the east. And then there's some residential to the south, but that's across the street. Directing truck traffic in and out of the property would be another one. And so all of these together would form basically the development standards for an SPA 4 district. What happened after all of that initial activity was we got to our January Planning Commission meeting, and we had heard nothing from the company. It really doesn't make sense to adopt these standards without at least some feedback from the company. And I certainly wouldn't recommend getting this specific if we didn't have a project in hand. So initially asked the Planning Commission if we could wait 2 weeks and we'd do it as a single subject meeting, and they agreed to that. But the company is still, they've completely revised their timeline, in fact. They, I think, had 1 or 2 mergers and acquisitions that they need to digest before making this step. So I think we're being pushed back probably a whole 3 months. The prospect is still very much there, but we're just not in a place where we're ready to basically pass this back and forth between the company and get their feedback. And so we did not have that special planning commission meeting, and there is no planning commission recommendation yet. Planning commission recommendation is a requirement for a change of zoning and also a zoning text amendment, which is what the SPA 4 district would be. As Ray explained, we advertised this public hearing 30 days in advance, and we also notified the surrounding property owners by regular mail about that, also 30 days in advance. And that's in accordance with our ordinance. Since those were all done, some communities will just cancel a public hearing, put a sign up, or if they're having a meeting, people would say, the public hearing is canceled. We tend to hear, in the time that I've been here, to hold those public hearings, even if we just need to open them and close them. This is maybe even a little bit different from that, in that I'm not just asking you to open and close a public hearing and then drop the matter. I think the matter is still very much alive. What I'm going to suggest is that at such a time as we can come up with a new schedule, we'll share that with you and also the Planning Commission. And I don't think it'll be any, it shouldn't be any real trouble to get that scheduled. And then we will probably, I would recommend that we hold a second public hearing because we'll have something more specific to discuss rather than just the broad outlines as I've gone over them. And so that's where we stand. It does still need to go to the Planning Commission, and once it does that, then we can move forward with the next steps. Normally after this, there would be an ordinance for first reading, and that is, as we noted, not on the agenda. And so you don't need to do anything with that. But that's what will happen should this come to fruition. If for some reason the company decides that they're going to stay in Cincinnati or do something completely different, then at that point, I'd say we just leave the zoning as it is, and we'll tackle that at some future date when we have another prospect. And that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, well, unless somebody has any burning desire to ask a question now, we will move on to Mr. Burns.
Yeah, so Chris, I understand the need for anonymity in this stage, but I think if we want feedback in a public hearing, somehow get a better description of the businesses. And I know we're early and we had to go through this process, but as you were talking, I was thinking, like, if we really had this, could we give the public an opportunity to formulate a good understanding of what this company does versus just manufacturing?
Actually, you pointed up another reason to not keep moving forward right now, and that is that we are not in a position to name the company. I fully expect that once the company commits to the property, then it'll all be public. And so we'll discuss the company, we'll discuss its operations, we will, you all, I mean, I've done it already, would have the opportunity to go visit their current location and develop a comfort level with it, hopefully. And so, yes, I think that that's another very good reason to just put on the brakes at the moment and then go forward at the next.
Thank you.
this point, then I'm going to close the public hearing as we've run over time, and I think Waycross people are ready for us. So, thank you, Mr. Anderson.